Canada is sending $25 million in aid to Palestinians. Ottawa says the money will go to those affected by the recent violence in Gaza and to those in the West Bank. Karina Gould is the Minister of International Development. Minister, thank you very much for joining the program. The level of destruction in Gaza is very significant from 11 days of airstrikes. By some estimates, it will take a decade or more to rebuild. Is this money something of a down payment? How should it be viewed and how quickly will it flow?
Yeah, so thank you for the question. So the $25 million that I announced today has three parts to it. The first is $10 million for the immediate humanitarian needs, like psychosocial support for children in particular, immediate food assistance, and health response. The next is $10 million that will be used over the coming weeks and months for kind of initial reconstruction efforts, and then $5 million for peacebuilding efforts. And so we know that it's quite soon after the conflict, and there'll still be a needs assessment. But this is, an important response in the immediacy following the cessation of hostilities.
I want to ask you, about how this money is going to be distributed. So is some of it flowing through the United Nations?
Yes. So for the first 10 million, that will go to trusted humanitarian partners with whom we have longstanding relationships in Gaza. So some of it will go to the United Nations UNRWA, through the World Food Program, through the Red Cross and the United Nations UNFPA, as well as the World Health Organization for that immediate humanitarian response. And then for the additional 15, that will really come from the needs assessment that we see over the coming weeks.
So when you speak about UNRWA, the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestinians, there have been concerns by some that it works with Hamas or at least has connections because Hamas runs the Gaza Strip, that it is hard to avoid that kind of influence. How can Canadians be sure that money contributed by Canada will not end up being used or flow to Hamas, an agency that Canada considers a terrorist organization?
Yeah, so I mean, Canada recognizes Hamas as a terrorist entity, and we do not engage with Hamas. The work that we do with UNRWA is in support of providing basic services to people on the ground in Gaza and other Palestinian refugees in the area. We have enhanced due diligence in the region to ensure just that. And these are longstanding partnerships that we've had, and we have protocols in place to ensure that that support goes to vulnerable Palestinians, and it does not in any way support the work of Hamas.
So I know our American colleagues at USAID, your counterparts in the United States, Samantha Power, who runs that agency, has talked about a vetting process. Are Canadian officials working with the Americans in tandem to ensure that money does not flow to Hamas?
Well, we've had those protocols in place for years, and we do that vetting process, and that's the enhanced due diligence that I talk about in the region that has been integral to the work that we've been doing in the Palestinian territories for years. Of course, we will be coordinating with our allies and partners in the region, USAID, as well as European countries and other like-mindeds, as we go through the reconstruction process and the humanitarian assistance in Gaza.
Should Canadians expect more funding to help the Palestinians rebuild, given the extreme level of destruction after those Israeli airstrikes?
Well, so this 25 million is in addition to the about $38 million a year that we already provide in the West Bank and Gaza. And as I said, we're still going through that needs assessment process. So, we will, as Canada always does, contribute our fair share when it comes to humanitarian responses. So I will be engaging with colleagues and counterparts in that response. But those assessments are still to come.
You mentioned $5 million for peace-building initiatives. What does that mean? What does that look like?
Yeah, so this actually is something that I think is really important. When we talk about peace building initiatives, it's those people to people connections, building ties between individuals and communities, and really addressing the root causes of this conflict. We need to be doing more of that, quite frankly, supporting organizations in Palestine and Israel that are looking to build bridges between the two peoples and to find that common ground. If we're going to get to a place where, and I hope we do, a two-state solution is possible and viable, people need to see each other as people that they can live in peace and security and dignity with and beside. And so this will be an initiative that we'll work on over the coming weeks and months. But really, it's to support those grassroots people-to-people ties to rebuild trust and confidence between the two peoples.
Minister Gould, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.